to start the call.
Okay.
Do you want to, what I want to ask that when we start, you could um, go on video just
Okay.
briefly just so people know what you look like. And if you want to turn off your video, feel free to. But at least just for the introductions, it'll be good to keep the video on.
Okay. All right. So, trying to connect to better audio, but
I can hear you just fine.
okay. That's great then.
Great. So we're just going to let everyone in. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on AI and health communications in Africa. I'm going to let people join in. There's a nice steady trickle of people joining. I'm going to let people continue to join for the next 5 minutes so as not to penalize the early comers. And then we start momentarily.
Hello, Sarati. If you talk, I can't hear you.
I'm not saying anything just yet, Kunle. I'm just waiting for everyone to kind of join us. I've already said that, let people kind of join us. Just give them a few minutes. I see that we're getting a steady trickle of people. I'm gonna let people join up, and maybe at 1:05, I'll get started. Just in another 3 minutes.
All right, noted.
And to everyone just joining us, thank you so much for joining in. We're just waiting a couple of minutes for more people so that we get started. Just gonna let people continue to trickle in, and another 2 minutes, I'll get started. All right. It's 1:05. I think we better get started so as not to penalize people that came early. Thank you so very much for joining us. My name is Saratu Abiola. I'll kick off the introductions. I am the project lead for Sauki. Sauki is a tool that harnesses the power of AI to take complex public health modeling research and make simple summaries from them. And these summaries are for different stakeholders, whether you need a complex summary as an academic, you need a more simple summary as a decision maker, or even a general public person or a journalist. These summaries can be used for a whole host of reasons, from facilitating interdisciplinary research to just helping people understand public health issues better. We are hosting a series of conversations concerning AI and public health, and this is the first of those. So I hope you stick around and have a listen to this really great conversation, but also tune into all the future ones that we have as well. I am being joined by Chibuike Alagboso. I'm probably murdering that. My apologies. You'll hear him say his own name in a minute. He's the director of communications over at Nigeria Health Watch. Chibuike, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Saratu. Appreciate it.
Please tell everyone a little bit about yourself before we get into it. Wait, actually, hold on a second. Wait, actually, hold on a second. Kunle, we're starting now. So, are we being recorded?
Yeah, I think so. Okay,
I believe we're being recorded.
Sign. Yeah, I see the recording sign.
Yeah, Kunle, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we're being recorded, right? We're starting.
Yes, meeting is being recorded.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so we can begin. Chibuike, please go on and tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
All right, thank you so much, Saratu. Like you said, my name is Chibuike Alagboso. I think you were close, but you didn't.
Close.
You didn't bother it too much. Yeah, so I work with Nigeria Health Watch as the director of media programs. Nigeria Health Watch is a health communication and advocacy nonprofit, been in existence for over 15 years now, and essentially it's focused on pushing for better healthcare for all Nigerians, and doing that using a mix of strategies from editorials, the articles that we write, which are basically around focused on two categories essentially. Opinion pieces, because if you need to drive change, you need to give people the right information to be informed enough to make the change. And this is on both sides, those who have the power to make this change, the policymakers, the private sector, the partners who are, invested in Nigeria's health sector, but also everyday Nigerian like, you and me, because they also need to understand these conversations and join in those conversations, to demand for better healthcare for all of us. And so beyond the editorial, we're very active on social media, across all social media platforms. That's also a very important tool that we leverage in our work. And also events, we convene events, because yes, we can have all of these conversations, but it's also important to bring all of these people together in the same room, talk about what's working, what are the issues, what are the things that are working that they can support each other in either further scaling up or, finding solutions to when it's focused on problems. So yeah, I work as the director of media programs, and it's a whole lot of conversation if I want to delve into that. But yeah, that's basically me. Happy
All
to
right.
be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much for the introduction. So I guess as good a place to start as any is talking about how does public health information reach the public? Could you draw the map for us on the beginning and the end of that process? And really curious to hear you talk about how the changing nature of media over the last couple of decades has affected the way that value chain, such as it were, and that, the value chain of public health information dissemination has changed over time. If you're speaking, you're muted. Can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Hope you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. So for us at Nigeria Health Watch, really, yes, health communication and advocacy, non-profit, but the work we do is hinged on journalism essentially. So we understand the power of the media. We understand how, very important role that media can play in achieving all of those things that I outlined. So yes, it plays a critical role in getting that information from creation or conception to where it is needed. And that being said, it still leverages those traditional structures, right? Yes, we are big on the new media, social media, digital media, leveraging the internet, website, and all of that. But those traditional structures, right, they're still pretty much very much relevant to the work that we do. So in that case, I'm referring to radio, referring to TV, I'm referring to print, right, newspaper. So that's pretty much how it moves, right, from getting some feedback. Is this from your end or can you mute? Okay. So the process essentially is at the point of conception. So what is the problem? If I can start from there. So what is the issue that we want to address, right? Or what is so it can be an issue or a situation or just pretty much a conversation that we want to advance. So it starts from identifying it. So once you identify, you can now sit down and curate the information. So I use curate the debate, not just creating, because in curating it, you are more deliberate about also getting the other side, right? So it's not just so you don't just sit and say, okay, this is what I think people need. So it's there's some form of research, there's some form of evidence, generation into that process, right? And once that is done, you can now package the information into how you want to distribute it, which channels you want to distribute it, which channels you want to use, who do you want to reach at the end of the day. The problem that has been identified, where is it, in terms of location, where is it that you now want to target? So once all of these are put together, you can now start taking advantage of all of those platforms. So a situation, an information package for radio may not be suited for TV or print or online or social media. So those structures are still very much important in the work that we do. And those are like, when you talk about the ecosystem or the value chain, like you mentioned, that's pretty much the process. So you create it, first of all, understand the issue, curate the information, leveraging evidence, data, and everything you can put together, package the information, decide the channels, and you start disseminating. But importantly, it's also good to track. And that's now where the opportunity we have with new media, and also going into the next question you asked around how all of that is evolving, right? How all of that is changing with what we're seeing, the new technologies that are coming up. I think that's one of the advantages that it offers us, the ability to get feedback fast. Of course, you can get feedback via radio. There are TV programs where you can phone in. Those days you can call into to phone into a TV program. Radio, that's also possible. Even print, there's also that feedback mechanism, right? You can write to the editor. There are such opportunities to write to the editor to react to something that's being a conversation that is ongoing. But with the new media, the digital media, social media, it's very fast. It has its pros and cons, but it makes that process for us. I think that's one of the biggest things that has changed, that ability to get feedback, see what the conversation is about, and also sort of feedback that insight that you're getting into the whole mix again. So that's really in terms of process, that's how it plays out, and also how we do the work at Nigeria Health Watch.
Wonderful. And just for clarity, your primary source of information that you then take to, for dissemination to different audiences, has that changed over time? And by primary source, I mean in terms of, you hear about, research found out this, or, government is like the Ministry of Health issued a press release, or this shared some information on this. Has those primary sources, government agencies and such, have those changed over time, or is it still the same?
It's pretty much the same. I mean, it's evolving. Like I said, you can now get feedback or insights from conversations that people are having, right? You can go into even a post, for example. Someone can drop a post on, say, Instagram or Twitter, and you can get really great insights from just the comments, how people are reacting to that particular event. So that's one on the other side. But all of those other sources you mentioned, they are very much very valuable sources. Those documents, policy documents, budget documents, press releases, news items, researches, policy white papers, and all of them. So those still feed into sources. So even interviews, like you can also reference some of those. A conversation that the minister, for instance, has that's published on YouTube. That's a source that you can, that can feed into a research publication you're putting out, or a story that you're putting out, or one product or another media product that you're putting out. So yes, those are still
very much
relevant.
Yeah. And so when we talk about public health information, we also have to talk about misinformation. Sometimes Absolutely. It's being spread religious reasons, political reasons, but other times it seems a bit harder to explain. Like I remember during the time of Ebola, there was a rumor that overconsumption of salt prevents Ebola, for example, and that doesn't have an obvious tie-in to any religious motivation or any political motivation. So in your work at Nigeria Health Watch, what have you learned about public health misinformation that maybe isn't obvious to those of us who are not, working in the space like you are?
I think one way to make this relatable is really the conversation that we all, something we say a lot, that nature abhors vacuum, right? I think that's one area that I think we've observed. And one thing that's, of course, there can be so many reasons, different motivations for people deliberately creating and spreading misinformation. And, it's always good to make that, create those or explain those differences, whether when it's disinformation, when it's very deliberate or misinformation. So maybe someone just misunderstood something and they are sharing. So there are different motivations, but generally speaking, I think it goes down to that saying that nature abhors vacuum, because if there is that gap, if there is a space, right, it's bound to be filled with something. So maybe it's because maybe a situation just came up, and can use COVID-19 for instance. A situation came up and it's evolving, and people are sharing what they are seeing. Nobody's sure what's going on, and the people who are supposed to be the trusted sources or the authoritative sources, right? They're not coming up to clear the air, fill in those gaps to say, look, this thing we're observing, this thing we are noticing, we are still looking into it, we are researching, so that we can put out evidence-based information. So when there are situations like that, it's definitely going to proliferate misinformation, right? Again, back to the example of COVID. So yes, it's a new situation, nobody is sure, but that's really an opportunity to sort of build on what's already known, right? So hand washing, for example, is a general practice that we know it's effective against infectious diseases. So even if we are not sure what is happening or what is going on, the researchers are still working. That's an opportunity to say, look, this thing is still evolving. And again, it's an opportunity to be honest, right? And be truthful about the whole thing. Because once you lose that trust too, it's a whole conversation when it comes to public health communication. Once you lose that trust, it also becomes a problem. So that situation is an opportunity to say, look, this is what the situation is. This is what we know so far. right? Be, honest about it. We are looking into it. But again, this is an opportunity to sort of build on what is known already, what is known to work. So yeah, this is a situation we don't, it's still evolving. We are researching into it so that we can come up with
Yeah.
evidence, with data to better inform. But this is what we should be doing, why we are coming back to you with, and
But
make
I
it
think
regular. So that being proactive is very important.
I hear you, but I think also that sometimes nature abhorring a vacuum does not always mean that the authorities didn't come forward to say. Because I remember during Ebola, there was actually a lot of of work done by government and non-government entities, even Nigeria
Yeah.
Health Watch, to actually say this is what we know. Unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know. And when the vacuum in that instance would be the things that we don't know. And then people just start to fill in the gaps, whatever it is. But then you can't help, experts can't help what is not known. There's a lot of things, even in
Absolutely.
medicine today, that people don't know. Like you simply don't know, for example, a lot of things about the brain are things that we don't know. I mean, it's still something that's still being studied. Endometriosis, PCOS, a lot of things concerning sexual and reproductive health, a lot of things that we don't know. So when you don't know, there's genuinely nothing that anybody can tell you because they don't know. And because they don't know, people will go in and fill in the gaps. I was on Twitter the other day and I saw a video of a religious leader saying spouting a lot of misinformation on fibroids. It was a whole thing in front of his congregation and saying a lot of things that a lot of medical professionals that were on the timeline were appalled at what he said. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of things we don't know about fibroids, a lot of things we don't know about, all those kinds of things. And he was filling in the gaps best as he knew how, but they were wrong. And I think that sometimes it's also about helping people to navigate what they don't know and what is not known and ease with the not knowing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because
absolutely.
It does seem to be a challenge. And I wonder, I mean, I was going to talk about COVID in a minute, and how the nature of, I was going to ask you what from your perspective was the major learning, with navigating, how do we navigate, the anxiety around not knowing. And I think COVID is a really good case of this because on the one hand, that we learned things as we went along. It was almost like a real-time changing of what we knew about COVID. And what did you learn about that, about helping people navigate that, when there's a lacuna that we truly cannot help?
Thanks. And just to also clarify what I said earlier about the vacuum analogy that I painted. So essentially, yes, the vacuum is that I was referring to is in coming out even to speak. Yes, about if for the issue itself, of course, a lot may or may not be known, right? But it's in coming out to inform people and not just keeping quiet. That's where the problem is. And that's actually the main, the vacuum I was referring to. Of course, in terms of vacuum, in terms of gap in knowledge, that's absolutely true. And, really, if you don't know, of course, it's a work in progress. But again, in situations where people come out with misinformation, it's an opportunity to hold them accountable as well and say, look, you are supposed to be a trusted voice. This thing you are saying, can you back it up with evidence, right? But for us, yes, we agree we don't know, but it doesn't mean we're going to be talking about AI in a couple of minutes now. It doesn't mean we have to fill that with anything. In case of AI, we will say hallucinating, right? So even this thing you are saying, you're just filling things up with, where is the evidence so you don't misinform people? And in terms of learnings, I think for me, because there are so many case studies out there, people sharing their experiences based on the type of work that they did. But for me as a person, again, yes, I work with Nigeria also, but not necessarily, my opinion and my opinion. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway is still around trust, something I had mentioned earlier. Asking people to trust us. Oh, this is a trusted voice, or this is a trusted source. It's not like a switch button, right? That you say, oh, trust us, and people will trust you automatically. It doesn't happen that way, right? It's so again, essentially, just to emphasize, asking people to trust us doesn't immediately translate to them trusting us. We need to show them why they should trust us. We need to make them trust us, give them the reason why they should trust us. And this, of course, there's no one size fits all. It's a mix of different strategies. How are we communicating? How often are we communicating? How honest are we? How do we own up when we make mistakes? I remember in the US, I think at some point they said face masks were compulsory. Later they came back and said, face mask. Of course, we're not sure about face masks again. So I think it's not easy. Of course, people can use it against you and say, oh,
Yeah.
Yes, you don't know
Today
what you're
you
doing.
said A, tomorrow you're saying B.
Exactly. Exactly. But I think it's just being open that look, I cannot just make up stuff because I want to sound like I know everything. I think for me that would be the biggest takeaway that look, and I saw a lot of it play out really during the pandemic. Those sorts of communication, especially with the leadership of NCDC that actually came to limelight at the time. Like they were there during the work, but that sort of put them out there. That's regular communication, using all sorts of formats, from multimedia to all sorts of creative assets to try and communicate as much as possible. This is what we know. But I think another thing that I also picked away from that whole situation is the need to sort of decentralize how we communicate this thing. So everything doesn't have to come from one source, right? Because people also trust, like their regular everyday Nigerian that they see. They know they have these issues, they're experiencing the same thing. So leveraging such voices, yes, we can call them influencers these days, but again, not necessarily influencers, like everyday person that, can be the lead of maybe a medical association or, just groups like that understand these issues. They can talk to their communities and they are trusted because they are facing the same problems. I think I saw a lot of that happen, and it's something that we should be replicating more as we communicate in the public health space.
So you said a lot of very interesting things. You said that that people in the space need to be engaging non-experts more so that they could engage with their communities. You said that people that are experts should be very honest about what they don't know yet. And if the knowledge changes, also come forward to say, hey, we thought this before, but now new evidence suggests this other thing. Okay. And would you say that, and I'm also hearing something very interesting about trust. Are you saying then that in order for health professionals and medical authorities to be seen as trustworthy, they have to have built that reputation over time? And it is during health emergencies that they kind of act as stress tests for the level of trust that these authorities have built over time. Would you say that the way that communities engage with health information or even take up information that's being shared by health authorities is a direct measure of the amount of trust that these health authorities have built over time? Would you say that's correct?
A simple answer would be yes, that's correct. But again, it's more complicated.
It's more complex than that, right?
Yeah. Yes, I wouldn't say like it's
in straight line.
Just straight line like that. And of course, there are so many conversations we can have around trust, what it means to people, how people define it. But I think for me, that would be like a simple way of measuring it, really. That you say something and someone, of course, it doesn't mean they have to take it hook, line, and sinker. They can query it, ask for clarification questions, even sort of challenge you on it and you to
Mhm.
convince them. But for people to sit down and listen to you in the first place and be interested to hear what you're
Say
saying, I
what you
think
have to
it's
say.
exactly, it's a function of the trust, how you've been engaging
Mm, mm,
before that time, before that trust, if I can put it that way, that trust um is actually needed. And I remember this saying
mhm,
that was also being used a lot around that time of COVID. And usually when there are infectious disease outbreaks, that you don't prepare for war in the time of war, right? You actually prepare way before. So if
way
something
before.
happens now, yeah, you can't just start now to, start running all over the place to respond. You must have
Mhm,
built the systems before then, step by step, little by little, to put those systems in place so that once there's an emergency, right, you are now able to respond better. You'll be in a better position. So I think it goes the same with trust. So it's not
mhm,
something you
mhm,
start immediately that there's a need for people to trust you. It's something you start building even when you think you don't need it. How do you engage? How do
mhm,
you, communicate with people? How do you make them sing, hear their
mhm,
voices, hear their experiences, and put that into the work that you're doing so that the time, if there's a need for them really to trust you, there's a situation that they need to trust you, they will listen to you. And
to
if that
you.
happens, I could say, back to your question, if they now eventually listen to you because of how you've been, what has happened, you've been doing for the past 5 years, 10 years, I could say,
Yes.
yes, it's as a result of that that they now trust you better and they're able to listen to you.
Mm-mm. So I have two more questions for you, and then I'll let people ask
Okay.
questions. So everyone, I hope you're taking notes of your questions. I'll open it up for questions momentarily. Just two more questions. So let's talk about AI briefly. Does AI open up new challenges and opportunities for addressing public health information and also misinformation? Because anything that can be used for information can also be used for misinformation. So, would you say that AI
Absolutely.
opens up new challenges and opportunities? And I'd love to hear you talk about, from your perspective at Nigerian Health Watch, what you see.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share the work that we're doing, not anything theoretical. So back to the question you asked, I think I'll respond to this with the question you answered and you asked earlier, why I talked about the need for proactive communication, right? I think the question was around public health misinformation, yes, and all of that. I said, that vacuum is something you don't want to be there. So for you to really understand what conversations that are going on, conversations that, how trends, where conversations are tilting, sentiment, people's sentiments and all of that. It needs also proactive listening. And that's, again, an experience that we have at Nigeria. It was something we do quite a lot, social listening, we have like a separate project around health, public health misinformation that some of my colleagues are leading. So essentially, it's leveraging technology, and in this case, AI. This is a huge opportunity that it presents to us to listen to conversations that are going. Because what happens is you're able to identify trends before they become an issue. And why AI is important in this situation is you're able to do this en masse, like in a volume that may not be. Yes, maybe possible because of course there are data analysts and people are skilled in that. But with AI, it's a lot more easier. And again, the tech, of course, there are levels to all of these things. But at the basic level, the technology is and the skill set required is not high level like that, right? It's to understand the tools, how to set the right queries, grab the data, and do the basic analysis so you start understanding where conversations are leaning. So what that now equips you with is you have able to identify trends on time, catch them, and design information to try and address them. Of course, it's a work in progress. It's not. We always emphasize that there's no one size fits all in all of these things. You keep evolving and you keep learning as you go. So that's really a tremendous opportunity when it comes to leveraging AI or technology, as far as fighting misinformation goes. But again, on the flip side, it's also a challenge because people can also leverage. Okay, just before I talk about the challenge, it's you can also leverage it to create some content again, at a pace that, if you're doing it as an individual, as a person, you would take more time to do less. But with AI, you take less time to do way more, right? So in terms of content creation, drafting content these days, generating artworks, of course, in all of this, being mindful of the ethics and the need for, to fully disclose when you're using some of those tools, so you don't also, um, mislead your audiences, being open about all of those uses. But again, those are some of the opportunities that it presents, like right in our in our hands for us to be able to use to address this. Because for you to also find those information, you need to be pushing out content, really engaging content, and to help address it so people are better informed. But again, people can also use this on the other side, because you're also able to create, especially for those who are doing this with ulterior motive, you're able to also create content to put out with the help of AI that will disinform people. So that's really one of the the other issues. But I think one of the other advantages that it offers, as far as addressing misinformation is concerned, is targeting audiences, right? And this is something we all experience one way or the other. I mean, even before AI became a thing, because audiences are not exactly the same. Audiences are not homogeneous. They are different, different backgrounds, different experiences, different interests, different ways that they engage with different content, different ideologies and all. So AI offers that opportunity to, of course, that's an advanced level, but again, it's something we see every day. So AI offers that opportunity to understand all of these nuances and target information to people based on what their interests are, based on the things that they can connect with easily, so they can see these messages easily and engage with them. As a funny example, I used to describe this. A colleague once sent me a link to order something for her online. So the items she wanted, they were, again, this is something we see, even though we don't know, because we see all of this. You're on a platform and it's recommending content for you. All of those things are AI based on your consumption habits. We see this for those who use Netflix. You see this on YouTube. All of those things are AI, algorithms suggesting content for you based on how it understands your, habits. So she showed me the link and said, "Oh, I want to order this." But under it was showing her a different recommendation. So she told me, "Oh, I want those other 3 items being suggested because they complement the main item
The
that
other
she
one,
wanted."
yeah.
So she sent me the link. And I told her I'm not going to see the same recommendation that you're seeing, because AI, the system will be recommending a different thing to me based on how I, interact with
Yeah,
the system.
yeah.
And it was just what played out. I clicked the link, I was seeing a different recommendation than, from what she was seeing. So that's really one of the, benefits of, how AI helps with, targeting information to people based on their interests and, their consumption habits.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so that's my very final question, everyone. Be ready with your questions for GBK. So my very last question for you is just something on media literacy. We are in an information age that is paradoxically leaving us a lot more confused than ever sometimes, with all the information that we are privy to that sometimes contradicts. What are some of the new practices for you, thinking about health communication? What are some of the things that you want people to think about when they're engaging in public health information? How do they know how to separate the wheat from the chaff, the good from the bad? And how do they engage critically with public health information in today's age?
Funny enough, I want to answer the question with the word you use, critical. Like, I think that would be like, yeah, to be honest, that would be, if it's not one thing you should take away. I think that's one thing I would advise everyone to take away from, this conversation. Be critical about this content. Like, again, I mentioned the work my colleagues in the misinformation project, what they do. Like a saying, there's a tagline they had on their t-shirt once. They said, "Not sure, don't share." Right? If you're not sure, don't share. So again, that goes back to be be critical about things. So don't just take things because you see, even if, yes, in quote, someone trusted or someone you think that is trusted shares this. Nobody is above mistake, right? So if you're not sure of something, the data looks somehow, the image looks somehow, the video looks somehow, everything can be falsified these days, unfortunately. Again, that's the disadvantage, like you asked, that you can use them to really create this content that helps you engage with people faster, put out content faster, but people can also use them for mischievous reasons. So essentially, I think for me, it's always have that mindset of this thing may or may not be true. Start from there first for every content you come across. So imagine all of us have that mindset. A lot of the things that we share, a lot of the misinformation that people, sorry about that, a lot of the misinformation that people just share, without even thinking twice, we
Being
won't be
thoughtful.
seeing.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I think that for me would be a very good place to start. Like being more aware of these things that, it can be misinformation, it can be misleading. So don't just share everything you see,
Yeah.
especially for health, right? I mean, if it's what example will I use now? If there are some things that you can share, people would just laugh over it, and maybe it's just misinformation for misinformation's sake, right? But when it comes to health, and that's the context we're having these conversations, we have to be a lot more careful. And you also alluded to it with the Ebola situation, where someone said, do this, you're going to get better. And people died as a result of that misinformation, even more than the virus itself. Right. So that's way more reason why people need to be critical. I think for me, the key word would just be critical about, the information you share. Just look at it critically first before you start disseminating. Is this right? Just ask those basic questions. This may or may not be correct.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for such a great conversation. Okay, I'm going to throw this open for questions. We have a lot of people on the call. You can leave your questions in the chat box, or feel free to put your hand up, and I will find you. Anybody have any questions? Just raise your hand.
Don't be shy. I have to answer.
Anyone? Questions? Wow, have Chibuike and I been very, very clear? No one has any questions? So you can ask questions in anything concerning health information, any questions you might have on AI and public health, any questions you might have on, I don't know, for Nigeria Health Watch. Yeah.
Health journalism. Maybe while we wait for questions, I could also share a bit about some of the other things that we are, thinking about, and some of the other ways we are thinking of leveraging AI. Okay. Okay. Before I go, John Paul. Yeah.
Yes. Please go ahead. Go ahead. You just need to unmute yourself, John Paul.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. So my name is John Paul Olobo, and coincidentally, I'm a benefit of the last health misinformation fellowship at Nigeria Health Watch. So I have actually met Chibuike in person, but I don't know, he doesn't remember my name, Sha. We are many though, so I don't blame him. So my question is actually around health communications, but it's not kind of peculiar to this discussion. It's kind of a bit tilting away. So my question is about research in health communications. So like I have an interest in health communication as a career, to further my health career. So, but then I don't really have the research foundation when it comes to publishing research, like the journals or the organizations to kind of submit your papers to. So that's like, I don't know if we can get an answer to that. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Chibuike?
Okay, so I'm trying to get the clear question, because you said, this is your interest, but you don't have the background or experience. So are you asking for platforms to publish when you do the research, or where to get the skills, opportunity to get the skills?
Okay, the platforms to kind of present the papers, like to publish.
Okay, but you have a research background, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I mean, there are a couple of them really, and also this is also an area that Corona Management System also has experience. If you remember, this whole conversation is hinged on the AI tool they have that helps people make sense of complicated research publications. But there are a couple of them really. I mean, even doing a quick Google search can list a couple. Of course, doing this, you have to be mindful of the forgotten what they are called now, the predator journals that just want to collect your money for the sake of, or they want to get your paper online. But it's quick ones, BMJ, British Medical Journal, and forgetting some now. I wish, as my colleague, that our knowledge management officer or manager in my organization, she's the pro when it comes to places to publish and platform to publish both research papers or manuscripts and things like that. But for me, I think a good place to start would just be just do a quick Google search. I think another one that comes to mind is they even have an application open now, the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine, if I get that correctly. Yeah, they have this research grant. I think the good thing with them is they will also provide that technical support. If they eventually give you the grant, they give £5,000 if you pitch a research area. And it's actually people like you that they are targeting people who don't have much experience when it comes to public health research. Just check them out. Google Royal Society of Tropical Medicine. Yeah, so I think the application should be closed in a couple of days now. So that would be a good place to also start. But like I said, with Google search, British Medical Journal, Google Scholar is also your go-to place, because the good thing with Google Scholar is you see where people are publishing, right? Like genuine places, reputable platforms. Especially you want to be targeting peer-reviewed platforms, because the thing with the predator ones is they'll just get it there. Nobody reviews, like, people who are experts in the area don't really review to give you feedback, useful feedback to help you improve. But with these peer review platforms, journals, they review, others review, give you feedback. So you're also better for it for the work that you're doing. So again, Google Scholar will be another good place. Just when you're Google Scholar, just search for a particular issue area. You see publications around that issue area. Then you now look at where they are being published, right? Where those people are publishing.
All right. And while we're on the topic of, I'll get to Aliyu in a minute. While we're on the topic of, media literacy, you can always use Sauki.ai to, if you're trying to gain a good understanding of any public health research issue, you can just take any paper you find that may be a little complex and run it through Sauki, and it should give you a simplified but very accurate way of understanding that particular piece of research. Aliyu, please go ahead and speak. You have the floor. Aliyu, you want to ask your question? Okay, while we're waiting for Aliyu's mic, I just want to say that yes, there will be recording of this call, and it will be shared after, if not today, then probably tomorrow, to everyone that participated. Aliu, do you want to ask a question? Does anybody else have questions? Okay, Bernadette. I'm gonna allow your mic. Please go ahead and speak, Bernadette.
So good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for the time and for the input. Getting to the topic of AI and health communication. My question is, maybe it's more of a reflection, because we all realize that AI need a whole pool of data. So the information that we feed from the continent, from the continent will also be the result that is going to come out. So how are we as public health or anybody around the public health field, what rule do we have, or how can we make sure that there is data enough available so that when people go online to access information, they will have in order to reduce the bias. I'm saying this like somebody who is a medical affairs professional. I work in the pharmaceutical, but since I am based here in Germany, what we have is you have access to information directly affecting the public lives of where you are working. But I have activities that I run in Cameroon. I'm originally from Cameroon. So now you have the issue of one, data, two, quality information, and it's circling back to the question the previous attendee was asking regarding publication, because if somebody is geared towards health information, they must not do primary research. What they can do is how can they translate the research that is available to suit for the understanding of the local community, because now most Africans are also going on AI to get information. But if they get information that is not tailored to their community, they might be having responses that are not for them. So on one side, how can we, in the public health area or in the global health area, focusing on issues within Africa, where do you see our responsibility on how can we hold ourselves responsible to make those data and information available for people to access? Because AI is like a tool, but we have the responsibility to feed the data, to make available the data that it is needed, so that if my grandmother or any of my relatives that are not savvy in health, if they have questions, they should have the right answer that suits their area. So I hope I did not speak too much. Yeah.
No. Thank you so much for that. And you raise very, very good points. Indeed, many AI tools were built for Western audiences, Western needs, and the responses very often gearing towards the West and things that are available in the West. It's a big part of the reason, to be honest, why we built Sauki. Sauki was built for Africa by Africans to respond to the need on the continent of strengthening evidence-based, understanding on public health-related issues for a whole host of audiences. And it's actually because of that, a lot of the AI systems right now, even if you are building for Africa, right? Say, for example, the underlying infrastructure of a lot of these AI tools, particularly the ones that have language, that use, that speak, they're built, they're written in English or French for Western, for Western countries. And that's why, if you've been paying any attention to AI-related news, you'd probably notice that African countries are building their own LLMs, large language models, because yes, it's still English. English is English, but if it's English that's and is trained on language that your own people speak, if it doesn't speak the way your people speak, then it'll be very difficult for people to build tools that are customized to our own local audiences. So you're correct, is what I'm trying to say. And there is a lot of work to be done. Sauki is one tool, but we definitely think that we need to do more on the continent to build tools for the future, for our future. Chibuike, what do you think?
I think you've pretty much alluded to the fact that what she said, and not to rehash the whole thing again, but it's very important. So whatever it is you're doing to bring out more data, because it's data, it's a lot of data, right? That these large language models are trained on, and whatever data that they're being trained on, their responses when you engage with them will tilt towards what they are being trained on. So as much as possible, it's really important that we put a lot more data out there. Of course, there's the whole conversation around how they access the data, if they are paying for the data. That conversation we can go into another day. Making sure that they are paying paying the people who are creating these things in the first place, not just scraping them off off the internet and using them to train their models. But essentially, we need to be more open about these issues, share the work that we're doing, and at the end of the day, because that's like a vicious cycle, that's still what will come back to.
Absolutely. There's a lot of ethical issues. 100%. There's a lot of ethical issues, but it's work that we can work around for sure. I see Sikosana also has a question. So sorry if I'm messing up your name. I'm going to allow your mic. Okay. You're able to unmute your mic now. Please go ahead and speak. What's your question?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the talk, Chibuike. My name is Mpo from SA. Just wanted to get your opinion on the protection of personal information in AI-driven health communications. Thanks.
On the what, sir? I didn't get the last part. On my thoughts on. Sorry, Sasanto, did you get it?
Mpo, could you take that again? Mpo? Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
I think she dropped off, actually. Well, that's a shame. I wanted to answer her question.
Yeah. But you didn't get it too, right?
Oh, she's just muted.
Okay. Where is she? I actually don't see her on the speaker list anymore. On our I didn't really understand what she was asking. Did you she said that she wanted to get a sense on
something around AI.
Yeah.
I missed the last part, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If I may help, what I got was the question around how it looks like to have personal data when accessing the AI platforms. So what happens to your personal information if it is available when you're accessing the AI platform? I hope I got her correctly.
Well, I mean, every platform, different platforms have different approaches to data. So there is no one uniform way of doing it, even if they are an AI platform. For example, on Sauki, we don't keep track, for example, of what you're doing on the platform. Yes, we collect biometric information, just like your name and what group do you belong to? Like, are you an academic? Are you a government person? Are you a researcher? But the actual details of what you're doing on the platform, what papers you're uploading, what you copy, all of that, that's not information that we keep. And that's a decision that we made internally, that we wanted to pay attention to other people's privacy and to respect people's privacy, while also giving us just enough information to be able to make the tool useful for everyone. But other people might use a very different approach, so.
Okay, did Saratu just leave the call? Hello, Saratu, you want?
Give her a few minutes, she'll join back.
Okay. So yeah, why should Joyce happy to, if there are more questions, you can put them in the chat or, just jump off mic.
Yeah, so sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna put my camera back on. There you are. All right. So I see one question from Dunte Alphonse. Can AI provide and analyze data and information in real time while taking into account local realities? It can if it's trained to. It can if it's trained to. Actually, one of the really good things about AI is that AI is really good at processing information, particularly like large volumes of information that may be a little bit harder for ordinary people to do, or it may take longer for ordinary people to do. So actually, processing and analyzing information is part and parcel of AI's main strength. And it can absolutely do it in real time. I believe Uganda is doing some very interesting work with improving malaria diagnosis using AI. It's doing it a lot faster than its previous methods. In biomedical imagery, for example, AI is much better than ordinary people at being able to tell a person's race from their from their x-rays and from things like that. People can't do it nearly as well, but AI is good at that. So you can actually really think of AI as a pattern recognition tool. It's really good at understanding patterns. And so, yes, it really just depends on how you train it. So that's my answer to you, Alphonse. So let's see. I believe we've gone through all the questions. I don't want to keep GBK here all day. Feel free to send GBK an email or to send me an email over at hello@sauki.ai if you have any further questions. If you have any questions for GBK, GBK, if you could just type up your email or any of the contact emails from for Nigeria Health Watch, if anybody wants to get in touch. And of course, please do have a look at Sauki. Yes, please go ahead and put it in the chat. If anyone wants to, have a look at Sauki, please go on and check. It's sauki.ai. That's SAUKI.ai. And if you have any, please keep in touch. We're going to have more of these conversations. We'd love to have you and your colleagues join us. So have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much, EBK. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for being here. Bye-bye, everyone.